My parents left me with my grandmother. Now they want me to do the same for them. I could feel the tension building in my chest as I read their message. The familiar anger and confusion rushed back to me, memories of their abandonment resurfacing like a storm I thought I had weathered long ago. I stared at the screen, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore them, to delete the message and move on with my life. But there was another part of me, a part that had longed for answers, that wondered why they were reaching out now. What did they want? Did they feel guilty for what they had done to me? Or were they just looking for a piece of the success they had never been a part of? I didn't respond right away. I spent days pacing around my house, replaying every moment from my childhood in my mind. The long hours spent at my grandmother's house, the feeling of being unwanted, the silence from my parents as they focused all their attention on my younger brother. Those feelings had been buried deep, but now they were surfacing with a vengeance. But then something unexpected happened. My grandmother, in all her wisdom, could see what was happening. She knew that this moment was coming, that one day my parents would show up again, and she was ready to help me navigate it. She sat me down and told me something that changed everything. Forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. Holding on to that pain will only weigh you down. They may never understand the hurt they caused, but you have to decide if you're going to let them steal your peace. Her words resonated with me deeply. I realized she was right. Holding on to the bitterness of my past was no longer serving me. It was time to let go, not for them, but for my own peace of mind. And so, after much deliberation, I sent a message back to my parents. I kept it simple. I told them I was doing well, that my business was growing, and that I had bought Grandma a new house. I didn't ask about them or how they had been. I didn't want to reopen old wounds. I just acknowledged their existence, and that was enough for me. To my surprise, they responded almost immediately, asking if we could meet in person. They wanted to catch up, to talk about everything that had happened over the years. My heart raced as I read their message. What did they want? Was this their way of making amends? Against my better judgment, I agreed. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I was determined to face whatever was coming with a sense of clarity and composure. The next week, we arranged to meet at a local cafe, a neutral place where we could talk. When I arrived, I saw them sitting at a table near the window. My parents looked older, their faces lined with time and regret. But they didn't look as I had expected. They weren't ashamed or apologetic. They sat there, looking at me as if they were seeing a stranger. The awkwardness between us was palpable, and for a moment, I almost regretted agreeing to this meeting. But then my mother spoke. "It's so good to see you again," she said softly, her voice tentative. "We've missed you." I didn't know how to respond. Missed me? Where were they when I needed them? Where were they when I was just a kid, sent away without explanation? The words I wanted to say were trapped inside me, but I stayed silent, my anger simmering just below the surface. My father, noticing the tension, leaned forward. "We know we haven't been there for you," he said. "And we're sorry. We should have been better." His apology didn't feel real to me. It wasn't enough to erase the years of hurt and neglect, but I couldn't help but feel a small part of me soften. Was this genuine? Were they truly sorry? Or was this just a way to ease their own guilt? I couldn't tell. My mother reached out to touch my hand. "We've been watching from afar," she said. "We saw what you did for Grandma. That was beautiful. We've always known you were capable of great things." The praise felt hollow. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had built my own life, and I had done it without their help or support. But still, I listened. I had to hear them out. I had to understand what had changed. They went on to explain how difficult things had been for them over the years, how they had focused on my younger brother, how they had thought I was fine on my own. They said they had made mistakes, that they had been selfish, and that they wanted to try to make up for it. But even as they spoke, I felt a disconnect. Their words didn't feel real, not when they had abandoned me so easily all those years ago. I realized then that I would never get the answers I was looking for. They would never truly understand the pain they had caused me. But I also knew that I didn't need them to. I had found my own way, and I had created a life that was full of love, success, and purpose. I had my grandmother, and she had given me everything I needed. I had built my business from the ground up, and I was proud of what I had accomplished. As the conversation came to a close, I felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't the closure I had imagined, but it was enough. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their love. I had everything I needed right in front of me. And I realized that, perhaps, this was the final step in my journey, accepting that they were never going to be the parents I had hoped for, but that I was strong enough to move forward without them. I left the cafe that day feeling lighter, unburdened by the weight of my past. My parents had reached out, but they were no longer a part of my present or future. I had a new family now, one built on trust, love, and mutual respect. And that, more than anything, was the greatest gift I could have ever asked for. I made a promise to myself that I would continue to honor my grandmother's love and sacrifices, that I would always strive to be the person she believed I could be. And no matter what happened in the future, I would never allow my past to define me. I was no longer a child waiting for approval or love from those who had abandoned me. I was an adult, carving out my own path, and that was enough. The chapter with my parents was closed, but the story of my life was just beginning. Certainly, here's an expanded version of your script, bringing it to 1,600 words in an engaging way, while keeping it connected. I wasn't sure how to respond at first. The shock hit me hard, but I played along. I had been through enough emotional turmoil in my life that I was used to masking my feelings and staying calm when everything inside me screamed to react. So, when my parents called, I answered. They asked about the new house I bought for my grandmother, and I was polite, perhaps too polite considering the circumstances. They said it was really sweet, and I could hear the pride in their voices, as if they were somehow entitled to share in my happiness. I wasn't going to let their words affect me. I didn't want to get pulled into anything that might trigger the long-buried resentment I had toward them. But I couldn't help it. I couldn't ignore the reality of it all. They'd been absent for so long, only popping back into my life now that they saw I had some wealth to show for the years of hard work I'd put into rebuilding myself. After all the years of neglect, I wasn't sure how to react to them suddenly acting like they were entitled to my success. But then came the moment that truly left me speechless. They casually told me, "Since you have the money now, it's about time you did the same for your real family," they said. "You've done something nice for Grandma, but it's time you do something for us too." I froze. I felt like the ground beneath me had shifted, and the words that came next took me completely by surprise. "We think it's time you bought us a house, and one for your brother too," they added. "He's about to go off to college, and we think he needs a nice place near his school. It should be somewhere impressive, something he can show off to his friends." I was stunned, speechless even. For years, they had been absent from my life, leaving me to struggle on my own. I had spent the most difficult moments of my life without them by my side. In fact, they had been the ones who pushed me away, choosing to ignore me while I fought to stay afloat in a world that seemed hell-bent on breaking me. And now, after all that, they wanted me to buy them a house. They wanted me to buy my brother a house too. It wasn't the request that shocked me, it was the audacity, the complete lack of self-awareness. They hadn't been there for me when I needed them the most. They had always favored my brother, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. And now, they wanted me to provide for them, to give them everything I never got. They had never cared about me. They only cared about what I could do for them now that I had money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't just the request itself, but the complete and utter disregard for everything I had been through. How could they ask for so much when they had abandoned me, when I was the one who had suffered while they lived their lives without a second thought for me? It was at that moment that the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. These people weren't my parents anymore. They weren't the people who had raised me. The people who raised me, who truly raised me, were not the ones on the other end of that phone call. It was my grandmother. She was the one who stepped in when they walked away. She was the one who held me when I cried, when the loneliness and abandonment were too much to bear. She was the one who gave me everything they refused to give me: love, support, encouragement, and most of all, a sense of belonging. While they were busy neglecting me, she was there, teaching me what it meant to love and to be loved in return. And so, I did what I had never had the courage to do before. I told them the truth. I wasn't going to sugarcoat it or hold back. I wasn't going to allow them to manipulate me into thinking that their demands were valid, that their behavior over the years could somehow be erased by the fact that I had money now. I told them, plain and simple, that they hadn't raised me. I told them that my grandmother was the one who had been there for me when they weren't. I told them that they didn't deserve a single thing from me because they had never earned it. I told them that my grandmother was the one who had given me everything I needed to become the person I was today. She was the one who had been my rock, who had picked up the pieces when they abandoned me. And for that, I would always be grateful to her. She had been the mother figure I never had, the one who showed me what it meant to care for someone selflessly. My voice was steady as I spoke, but inside, I was shaking. I was angry, frustrated, and hurt all at once. But I didn't let it show. I couldn't let them see that they had shaken me. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me crumble, not after everything they had done. After I said what I needed to say, I hung up the phone. I didn't give them a chance to respond, because I knew what they would say. I knew they would try to guilt me, to manipulate me into thinking that I was being cruel. But I wasn't. I wasn't being cruel. I was being honest. I was finally standing up for myself. And I haven't answered any of their calls since. They've tried reaching out. They've left message after message, called me nonstop, and even sent texts, all begging me to forgive them, to forget everything that had happened. But I won't pick up. I can't. I don't care if they're mad. I don't care if they feel entitled to my success. I don't care about the guilt they're trying to lay on me. The truth is, I don't even know who they are anymore. These are not the people who raised me. These are not the people who showed me what love and care look like. They are not the parents who walked beside me through life's hardest challenges. No, they are strangers to me now. And they don't deserve anything from me, not my time, not my energy, and certainly not my money. I've made peace with it. I've come to terms with the fact that my parents are no longer a part of my life. They weren't there when I needed them, and now they want to come back and take what they think they're owed. But they are owed nothing. If anything, they owe me an apology, a real one, not the kind that comes with strings attached, not the kind that expects me to just move on and forget. As for my brother, I've come to terms with him too. He's welcome to deal with the family he's been given. I won't stand in his way, and I won't hold him accountable for their actions. He's a product of their favoritism, but he has his own path to walk now. He's an adult, and it's time for him to figure out where he fits in all of this. I'm done with the past. I've let it go. It's taken me years to reach this point, but I'm finally free. I'm free from the toxic family dynamics that held me back for so long. And now, I'm moving forward. I have my grandmother by my side, and that's all I need. She's the one who has always been there for me, and she's the one who will continue to be there for me as I build a future for myself. A future that's not defined by guilt or obligation, but by love, respect, and the people who truly matter in my life. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I've got plenty more incredible stories coming your way. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are never obligated to stay connected to anyone who doesn't truly care about you. Your worth is not defined by others' expectations, but by the love you give and the love you receive.